कर्णेभिः शृणुयामदेवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृत्रश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अथ गणपत्यथर्वशीर्षस्य आख्यास्यामः। ॐ नमस्ते गणपतये त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं तत्त्वमसि त्वमेव केवलं कर्तासि त्वमेव केवलं धर्तासि त्वमेव केवलं हर्तासि त्वमेव सर्वं खल्विदं ब्रह्मासि त्वं साक्षादात्मासि नित्यं ऋतं वच्मि सत्यं वच्मि अव त्वं माम् अवभक्तारम् अवश्रोतारम् अवदातारम् अवधातारम् अवानुजान अवशिष्यम् अवपश्चात्तात् अवपुरस्तात् अवोत्तरात्तात् अवदक्षिणात्तात् अवचोर्ध्वात्तात् अवाधरात्तात् सर्वतो मां पाहि पाहि समन्तात् त्वं वाङ्मयस्त्वं चिन्मयः त्वमानन्दमयस्त्वं ब्रह्ममयः त्वमानन्दमयस्त्वं ब्रह्ममयः त्वं सच्चिदानन्दाद्वितीयोऽसि त्वं प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वं ज्ञानमयो विज्ञानमयोऽसि सर्वं जगदिदं त्वत्तो जायते सर्वं जगदिदं त्वत्तस्तिष्ठति सर्वं जगदिदं त्वयि लयमेष्यति सर्वं जगदिदं त्वयि प्रत्येति त्वं भूमिरापो नलो निलो नवः त्वं चत्वारि वा आत्पदानि त्वं गुणत्रयातीतः त्वं देहत्रयातीतः त्वं कालत्रयातीतः त्वं मूलाधारस्थितोऽसि नित्यं त्वं शक्तित्रयात्मकः त्वं शक्तित्रयात्मकः त्वां योगिनो ध्यायन्ति नित्यं त्वं ब्रह्मा त्वं विष्णुस्त्वं रुद्रस्त्वम् इन्द्रस्त्वम् अग्निस्त्वं वायुस्त्वं सूर्यस्त्वं चन्द्रमास्त्वं ब्रह्मभूर्भुवस्वरो गणादिं पूर्वमूर्चाय वर्णादीं तदनन्तरम् अनुस्वारः परतरः अर्धे एन्दुलसितं तारेण रुद्रम् एतत्तमनुस्वरूपं गकारः पूर्वरूपम् अकारो मध्यमरूपम् अनुस्वारश्च अन्त्यरूपं बिन्दुरुत्तररूपं नादः सन्धानं सबुंहिता सन्धिः सैषा गणेशविद्या गणकऋषिः निसृद्गायत्री छन्दः गणपतिर्देवता ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। एकदन्ताय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्तिः प्रचोदयात् एकदन्तं चतुर्हस्तं पाशमं कुशधारिणं रथं च वरदं हस्तैर्बिभ्राणं मूषकध्वजं रक्तं लम्बोदरं शूर्पकर्णकं रक्तवाससं रक्तगन्धानुलिप्ताङ्गं रक्तपुष्पैः सुपूजितं भक्तानुकम्पिनं देवं जगत्कारणमच्युतम् आविर्भूतं च सृष्ट्यादौ प्रकृतेः पुरुषात् परम् एवं ध्यायति यो नित्यं स योगी योगिनां परः। नमो व्रातपतये नमो गणपतये नमः प्रमथपतये नमस्ते अस्तु लम्बोदराय एकदन्ताय विघ्ननाशिने शतसुताय श्रीवरदमूर्तये नमो नमः। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। ॐ जातवेदसे सुनवामसो ममराति यतो निदहाति वेदः स नः पर्षदति दुर्गाणि विश्वानावेव सिन्धुं दुरितात्यग्निः तामग्निवर्णां तपसा ज्वलन्तीं वैरोचनीं कर्मफलेषु जुष्टां दुर्गां देवीं शरणमहं प्रपद्ये सुतरसितरसे नमः। अग्ने त्वं पारयानव्यो अस्मान् स्वस्तिभिरति दुर्गाणि विश्वा पूश्च पृथ्वी बहुला न उर्वी भवातोका यतनया यशंयोः विश्वानिनो दुर्गः जातवेदस्मिन् धुन्ननावादुरितातिपर्षि अग्ने अत्रिवन् मनसा घृणानो अस्माकं बोध्यविदा तनूनां पृतनाचितपुंसः मानमुग्रमग्निगुं हुवेम परमात् सधस्थात् स नः पर्षदति दुर्गाणि विश्वाक्षा अत्तेवो अतिदुरितात्यग्निः प्रत्नोश्चिकमीढ्यो अध्वरेषु सनाच्यहोतानव्यश्च सत्सि स्वाञ्चाग्ने तनुपं विप्रयस्वास्मभ्यं च सौभगमायजस्व गोभिर्जुष्टमयुजो निषिक्तं तवेन्द्रविष्णोरनुसञ्चरेम नाकस्य पृष्ठमभिसंवसा नो वैष्णवीं लोक इहमादयन्ताम् कात्यायनाय विद्महे कन्याकुमारी धीमहि तन्नो दुर्गिः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ हिरण्यवर्णां हरिणीं सुवर्णरजतस्रजां चन्द्रां हिरण्मयीं लक्ष्मीं जातवेदो महापः तां महापः जातवेदो लक्ष्मीमनपगामिनीं यस्यां हिरण्यं विन्देयं गामस्वं पुरुषानहम् ॐ महादेव्यै च विद्महे विष्णुपत्नी च धीमहि तन्नो लक्ष्मीः प्रचोदयात् ॐ मेधादेवी जुषमाणा न आगात् विश्वाची भद्रासु मनस्यमाना त्वया जुष्टा नुदमाना दुरुक्तान् बृहद्वदेम विदथे सुवीराः त्वया जुष्टऋषिर्भवति देवि त्वया ब्रह्मा गतः श्रीरुतत्वया त्वया जुष्टश्चित्रं विन्दते वसुसा नो जुषस्वद्रविणो न मेधे ॐ हंसाय विद्महे परमहंसाय धीमहि तन्नो हंसः प्रचोदयात् ॐ नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णुः प्रचोदयात् ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महादेवाय धीमहि तन्नो रुद्रः प्रचोदयात् ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महासेनाय धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात् ॐ ऐं ह्रीं श्रीं श्रीमात्रे नमः गंगा भवानी गायत्री काली लक्ष्मी सरस्वती राजराजेश्वरी बाला श्यामला ललिता दशा गंगा भवानी गायत्री काली लक्ष्मी सरस्वती राजराजेश्वरी बाला श्यामला ललिता दशा गंगा भवानी गायत्री काली लक्ष्मी सरस्वती राजराजेश्वरी बाला श्यामला ललिता दशा गंगा भवानी गायत्री काली लक्ष्मी सरस्वती राजराजेश्वरी बाला श्यामला ललिता दशा गंगा भवानी गायत्री काली लक्ष्मी सरस्वती राजराजेश्वरी बाला श्यामला ललिता दशा ॐ यो देव सवितास्माकं धियो धर्मादिगोचराः प्रेरयेत्तस्य यद्भर्गः तद्वरेण्यम् उपास्महे ॐ तत्सत् ॐ प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्तैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः ॐ सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ Okay, we continue the Bhagavad Gita discussion live. So we are in the third chapter. Whoever would like to follow the chanting or read Bhagavad Gita in your free time, I have brought some copies of small books of Bhagavad Gita. Whoever does not have can take it. Whoever has some copy, even if it is Bhagavad Gita as it is doesn't matter. For reading, it's fine. So those who don't have can take from it. So in the last class, we saw about the importance of doing action over inaction, non-action, followed by the importance of doing action as yajna, as an offering to the Lord, and how the action that is done as a yajna, as an offering to the Lord, prepares a person to become ready for the knowledge, which is freedom from action, and also how simply not doing anything cannot become freedom from action. So, just by not commencing to do an action, just by not committing oneself to something that is an active life that is according to Dharma, just by not committing oneself to action, one does not become free from action, because by simply sitting, a person who is considering oneself to be the doer and the enjoyer is going to be busy seeking various sense objects while sitting quietly. So he's only sitting quietly for namesake. He's not really sitting quiet. So this trying to act out being a meditative person will not work if the person is not ready. So Arjuna, take to action with detachment. So that was the teaching till now. And also, the discussion was how it is important to do yajna. Yajnam, dhanam, tapas should be always followed. This teaching was there, and also how it is important to do action as yajna. Yajna preserves the cosmic ecosystem. This is what we saw in the last class. When I offer oblations to the devas, making offerings to the divinities nourishes the divinities, and in turn the divinities nourish us. Mutually nourishing, there is prosperity, and all the natural rhythms follow properly. The climate is okay, and when it is winter, it is winter. When it is summer, it is summer. When it is supposed to rain, it rains. So when this concept was there, I explained how the different climatic rhythms are in the hands of the divine forces. That is why when we have natural disasters, it is called as Adi Daivika, means centered on divine forces, divine reasons. Even in insurance, they will say acts of God. Insurance does not cover acts of God. Acts of God means Adi Daivika. They recognize here also. But instead of telling Mr. God, we don't blame Mr. God for all this. We understand it all as part of the cosmic order. So being an order, the order has to be maintained. To maintain the order, there is the involvement of functional consciousness. The consciousness has to be focused on maintaining the order. Then the order is maintained. Otherwise, it is a chaos. That is why you see the other planets and Earth. The probability of having an Earth in this entire universe, in this galaxy, in many galaxies, if you see the probability, the scientists say is 1 into 10 power minus something, some 30, 40, something like that, to have an Earth. So to have this stability of this little tiny precious Earth in this cosmic dust, with all this chaotic thing, and this Earth is nicely protected with one atmosphere, and ultraviolet rays are protected, the meteorites and other things don't just fall inside like that. So you have so many things that goes into formation of the Earth that supports life. And then from the life comes a human being, and it is a human being who is qualified to do karma. It is the human being who can do yajna. This is very important. Why yajna is told for a human being? Because only a human being can do yajna. No other living creature can do yajna, because the concept of conscious action is not an option for any other living being. Only the human being can do that. So he says, may you do yajna. When the Creator created the human beings along with the yajna, that statement came, few verses back, in I think it's in number 8. सह यज्ञाः प्रजा सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्यद्वम् एष वोस्त्विष्टकामधुक्. Here, in the beginning, the Creator, having created human beings along with yajna, said, by this yajna shall you multiply. May this yajna be the wish-fulfilling cow for you. All this we discussed. And then the importance of yajna in all the verses. So we will keep looking at these verses again. Another 10 or 11 verses. Continuously I will read the translation, so that we are in touch with the flow of thought in the third chapter. So I will read the translations from that verse onwards. Propitiate the deities, the devatas, with this ritualistic offerings, yajna. May those deities propitiate you. Propitiating one another, you shall gain the highest good. Devan bhavayata nena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah paramavapsyatha. How do you attain the highest good? By doing yajna. The commentary said the highest good is the knowledge of the self. By yajna, you have a stable life. A stable life that is not a victim of chaos. If your life is not if your life is not thrown into too much randomness. If you look at our life, there is some kind of an order. For example, when you look at the life of certain unprivileged people, or if you look at the life of some underdeveloped countries, where the masses, where you say the masses and the classes. Any society we go, you have the masses and you have the classes. Wherever the masses and classes are there, if you look at them, you will see the life of the masses is thrown into more randomness and unpredictability than the life of the classes. So you see that a teenage pregnancy, and then suddenly somebody coming and destroying the whole family, kidnapping somebody, and somebody getting lost in drugs, and all these kind of things you see in slums, for example. But if you see in a well-educated family where the chaos level is less, you cannot say that there will be no disaster, nothing. Then it is seen as an exception. But if you go into a disorderly society where everybody is living only for their whim and fancy, you will see more disorder setting in. And things will start becoming unpredictable. And in a country where the main decision makers are also driven by their fancy, then you will see no law and order. You will see chaos and anarchy prevailing in the country. This is normal common sense level. Then you have one more level where you see in some country there is a lot of prosperity for some time. Then the prosperity is not sustainable. If you see America, in the 17th century, 18th century, in those times, the American life was fantastic when compared to Europe. It was all money and prosperity and plenty and too much of, much more than what they need, phenomenal exports when compared to imports and all that. Now you see it's going down. And the land is not fertile anymore. The people are with a lot of diseases, obesity and all kinds of problems. People with psychiatric problems and a lot of fear. There is always a tension. Why? Because the growth was not a sustainable growth. The growth was not, there was action, but the action was not yajna. If your action is based on yajna, then the growth becomes a sustainable growth. You have a gradual growth. You don't have to pay a huge price for what you gain. See, you have to pay some amount of price. So the price that you pay must be proportional to the gain. So when do you consider something more prosperous and less prosperous? When something is more prosperous, in a more prosperous society where everything is in order, you don't pay too much to get the basic things. But in other places, let us say you are in a Holocaust Jewish concentration camp, you have to pay a lot of money and bribe somebody to get one piece of bread. But at the same time, if you are in a certain a certain place where You are in a country like Turkey or India, for example. You're hungry, you just go and ask food from somebody, they'll give you food. You don't need to even buy food. It is possible to live, survive, you don't need money, you will get food. In India, you knock on anybody's house and you ask for food, they'll give you food in villages. So, but in fact, there are even places where they consider selling milk and food is anti-Lakshmi. I mean, it is anti-prosperity. So people will not sell milk and food. They will only give. There are people who maintain hundreds of cows in certain parts of India and they will not sell the milk. They will donate to the temple. They will donate to orphanage. They will not sell the milk. Hundreds and thousands of liters per day. They will not sell. Because selling milk is considered as anti-prosperity. You should not sell milk. It's called adharma. They say if a Brahmin who is born as a Brahmin and who lives as a Brahmin sells milk, in 3 days he loses being a Brahmin, the status of a Brahmin. He cannot sell milk. Also, if he sells food, they say, so many days he just stops being a Brahmin. He is disqualified. He cannot sell food. In fact, you will see in India specialty Brahmin restaurant run by Brahmins, Brahmin cook. You will see a restaurant in India. You are not supposed to sell food. So when you see society is built on a concept of yajna and sharing. Sharing is also yajna, is a kind of yajna, manusha yajna. So when a society is built on sharing, yajna is sharing. When you add the Vedic wisdom into the yajna, the knowledge of the Veda is also added to the yajna. It is not just sharing between human beings and humans and animals or nature. It is also sharing between the humans and gods. We all think there is one God sitting there and regulating everything by His will. It's not like that. It is God who creates the order, and the order is sustained by yajna. The cosmic order, the orderliness of the climate and the people and the psychological order, the climatic order, the spiritual order, it is sustained by yajna. The process of yajna sustains the universal order. And whenever this order is disturbed beyond a certain critical point, the Lord will interfere and restore the order. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. It will come in Bhagavad Gita, later it will come. Wherever dharma goes down beyond a critical level and critical minimum, and adharma increases beyond the critical maximum, I will incarnate myself and restore the dharma back. It comes. Sambhavam yuge yuge paritranaya sadhunam, for the sake of protecting the sadhus, the pious ones. Vinashaya cha dushkritam, for destroying those who are bent on creating disorder. Dharma samsthapanarthaya, for the purpose of establishing dharma, I incarnate myself in different ages I incarnate myself. Sambhavam yuge yuge. So in any society, in any structure, that yajna is that which sustains the order. The moment the yajna is gone and selfish action comes in, disorder creeps into the system. That is the whole point. So he says, may you be devoted to yajna. That is the whole. So that concept is being discussed here. The deities propitiated by yajna will give you the desirable objects. One who enjoys objects given by them without offering to them in return is indeed a thief. So you have to recognize the role of the different conscious forces in the universe behind the manifestation of the different resources that we consume. And also, he says, the one who enjoys, those who eat having first offered the food to the Lord are released from the impurities. Whereas those people who are purely oriented towards consumption and enjoyment, and who cook only for their own sake, eat papa, negative karma. Why? Because the process of production of the food involves a lot of negative karma. You have to hurt a lot of insects, you have to hurt animals, the cows and bulls, they all suffer. And then for the process of producing electricity, you create a lot of environmental damage. And then there is a process of refining the food, cooking the food. And there is somebody who is, if you give a lot of money, that guy will not choose to do the job of carrying the loads of food grains in the supermarket. You get any fellow who works in the supermarket, who carries weight and all that, you give him $1 million. Let us see if he continues to work in the supermarket. He will not. Because of the underprivileged economic situation, many people do the work with a lot of pain to earn money, and that work is needed for us to eat food here. So, eating food involves a lot of negative karma, it involves a lot of suffering. So, to neutralize the suffering that is generated in the process of our consumption, I have to offer the food to the Lord, and in turn, the grace of the Lord removes the thing. That means I recognize the hand of the Lord. That means everything is regulated by the divine. I am not the doer, I am not the enjoyer. Everything is regulated by the divine. In this, the recognition frees my mind from the clutches of the negative karma. It has a certain purifying effect. That is idea. Okay. Living beings are born of food. Annat bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhavaha yajnat bhavati parjanyo yajnah karma samudbhavaha. The living beings are born of food. Food is born of rain. Rain is born of yajna. It's a very important point, which also I discussed. Yajna brings the rain. They say, Swami Dayananda Saraswati in his commentary gives a nice thing. Not that if you don't do yajna, rains will not come. Rains will come, but rain will come when it is not supposed to come. And it will not come when it is supposed to come. So there will be famine, and then when you are about to harvest, it will be a huge 10 centimeter rain, it will destroy all the crops. So the climatic rhythms are under the hands of the devas. Any place where the yajnas are done properly, the climatic rhythms will be in order. It is possible to control the climate through mantras. That is the whole the esoterics behind the Vedic rituals. In India, it's very recently you have these, even now it is not that much. The natural calamities, when you compare to the other countries, especially like US, you will see the natural calamities are very less in India for the time scale and the natural calamities that you see. It will not be that much. And also certain areas will be protected. When tsunami came, all the coastal temples where the certain very ancient temples and certain important religious places are there, all those areas the sea went in the back and came back and stopped. None of those areas were touched. Puri, Jagannath, nothing happened. Tiruchendur in Tamil Nadu, nothing happened. Like that, some 3-4 places were marked, nothing happened there. Because they say, because of the certain details are taken, subtle details are taken care, and because of that place will not be affected. Like this we have, and as the rituals start going down, even those places will start getting affected. For example, you saw recently, there was a huge disaster in Himalayas in a very holy place called Kedarnath. I think Badrinath, Kedarnath, yes. In Kedarnath, thousands and thousands of people died. And a lot of disaster and this avalanche and all kind of things, cloud burst. Inside the temple, a lot of people were dead, but the temple, nothing happened to the temple. Just around the temple, a huge boulder came and fell near the temple. It did not touch the temple. That boulder protected the entire flood, and the whole flood went around the temple. Just the temple was there. Compound wall of the temple is gone. The door of the temple is gone. Just main temple stays. Nothing happened. Hundreds of people dead inside the temple and outside and everywhere. And it is considered by the ritualistic experts that there is too much of business and the dharma is gone. They don't maintain the place properly. In very powerful spiritual centers, if you don't maintain with the proper rules, what is called as prayaschitta, neutralizing will come. Usually they will give bali. In those ancient times, they will offer sacrifice, animal sacrifice, human sacrifice. These are all very extreme measures done to neutralize the negative impact in a certain way. But suppose if you follow all the rules properly, these kind of things will not happen. It seems they disturbed a Kali temple which is present in a certain angle to this temple. This Kedarnath temple is there, and then from there in a certain angle, like a triangle, this Kedarnath temple, and there is a certain Kali temple, and there is another temple in the other end, Badrinath or something. So in this triangle, there is a certain kind of energetic equilibrium that protects that area from these natural disasters in a certain point. Because That place is a very, very fragile ecosystem. If you touch something more than what is allowed, it's going to create chaos. And they started practicing this, they started experimenting this cloud seeding and all these experiments there. And they moved the Kali temple because they wanted to make a highway, something like this. Finished. Thousands of people gone. So this is one explanation given by the ritualistic people. And then it happened, the same thing happened in 1915 or something, it seems. The same Kali temple, they tried to touch the Kali temple, and then again there was all kinds of disasters and thousands of people dead, and then they put it back. So now they tried again, and then the same thing happened. So usually these are not, these are, I'm quoting these as pointers, different pointers to the connection between the subtle world and the physical world. There is a saying, Lokanam Devadinam, the world is in the hands of the Devas, the divine forces. Devanam Mantradinam, the divine forces are in the hand, under the control of the mantras. Mantranam Brahmanadinam, all the mantras are in the hands of those learned in the Vedas. Brahmanaha Mama Devata. So those who are learned in the Vedas and who do the yajnas properly, they are our living God. That was the attitude in the culture. So as long as the Brahmana, the one who is learned in the Veda, lives in a way that he is supposed to live, he is a living God. He protects the world. That is what is the tatparya, the intended point here. So living beings are born of food, food is born of rain, rain is born of yajna. Here in the bracket, the translation is written punya. The rain is born of punya means the result of virtuous actions. You may say, we all don't have Veda, what to do? Suppose in a country, when everybody is living in a way that is not causing too much trouble, you are living in a sustainable fashion, both physically and psychologically, where the prosperity is not generated by mutual exploitation, but the prosperity is generated by sharing and cooperation, and where the laws and where the human spirit is respected, where the environment is respected, even there is a certain level of punya, and where they do a lot of dhanam. Suppose a country is very prosperous, they share their wealth with the less prosperous neighbors, and they share their excess food. In Sweden, for example, when I was a school boy, I heard about something happened in Sweden. They produce a lot of milk, and the milk price went down. So because of that, to keep the milk price, they threw billions and billions of gallons of milk into the sea, so that the milk price does not go up. So this shows the attitude of not understanding what is yajna. Why can't you find a way to share that with some place where they cannot afford milk? Give it free. You cannot. That attitude is not there. So in a society where there is a sustainable exploitation of resources, sharing and dhanam, where there is a lot of charity and philanthropic work, that is also yajna. So in that society, there will be stability. The climatic rhythms in that country will be good, relatively better than the rest of the world. Let us say some, because of greenhouse effect or whatever, there is a lot of chaos around, climatic chaos. Within the given situation, your country will fare better than the rest of the countries. Suppose if the dharma is maintained, normal, common sense dharma is maintained, and some charity and some good virtuous actions are done, that power of that virtue will take care of the climate. Even though you may not have the Veda. So that is an extension example, it's an extension explanation of whatever is given here. But according to this, he is talking about yajna. In a place where you do yajna, the place is protected, climate is protected. And may you understand that karma brahmodbhavam vidhi, here he is talking about Vedic karma, Vedikam karma, the ritualistic religious action. Karma is born of the Veda, and the Veda is born of the imperishable Ishvara. Therefore, the all-pervasive Brahman abides always in the yajna. So the imperishable Supreme Being is always living in the yajna, in the Vedic rituals. It's just to appreciate, we can't do much about this because we are in a situation where we cannot do Vedic rituals. So we cannot take it literally. So what we can take this as information about the presence of a subtle order. This you can use these verses of Gita. We can use to become sensitive to the presence of a subtle order that controls the physical order, that has its own laws and regulations. The information about that and the guidance for tapping the subtle order properly, the guidance is available in the Veda. That much we can take it from this. Okay? And then the person who does not follow here in this life, this cosmic wheel that is already set in motion in this manner and lives in sin given only to the pleasures of the senses, lives wastefully, Arjuna. So here when I say sin, don't be carried away by your natural anti-sin reaction. The word sin is already programmed into your head in a certain way. Here it does not mean like that. It's not some sin because God doesn't like it or something like that. It's not like that. It's not the Christian sin. The sin here means an action that produces a negative result for oneself and or for the environment. That is what is sin. Sin means something that produces a negative result. It does not produce, it produces more negative results than it produces positive results. I like food. So when I am hungry, I just eat. Hunger is satisfied, positive result. So but if I only eat like an animal only for my sake, without respecting the subtle order behind the production of food, then I am consuming the negative karmas associated with the production of the food. But when that food is taken as a prasada, as a result of offering as an yajna, it's a product of yajna, then it does not have the negative effects and the negative karmic imprint in it, like how a normal food that is consumed for pleasure. A food is consumed only for my self gratification has its load of negative karma. But a food that is consumed as a result of yajna, its negative load of karma is neutralized. That is the point. So a person who is consuming only for oneself without that sensitivity to the subtle factors behind the consumption of food, that person is accumulating negative karma. That's what it means. And such a person lives wastefully, is wasting his life. Why? Because just to eat, sleep and procreate, I can as well be an animal. To do conscious action where I can neutralize the negative karmas and maximize the positive karmas, that possibility is there only for a human being. So as a human being, if I don't live my life consciously in an action that is done in a spirit of devotion, my life is wasted. Means I am not optimizing my human potential. So human potential is optimized in two ways. One, I increase my positive karma and reduce my negative karma. This is the optimizing the human potential for a ritualistic religious person who is an active person, who considers I am a doer, I am an enjoyer. For that person, neutralizing the negative karmas and increasing positive karmas is one useful living. That is ability to pursue your purushartha. This is one. Another, purifying the mind and accumulating so much of virtue so that you are becoming ready for knowledge and gaining the self-knowledge. That is another gain. So these two things, either if you are not having a mind that is tuned to knowledge, at least accumulate good karma. But in the process, when you are having a level of maturity where you can recognize liberation as the worthy ideal to pursue, start accumulating, start purifying the mind. May you become more and more pure mentally, physically, mentally, astrally pure. And in that process, you become ready for knowledge and you obtain self-knowledge. If you don't do either of this, you are wasting your life. That is the point. Whereas for the person who is delighted in the self, so now he is coming to the next category of person. Okay. So now we talked about an active person, a karmi, a person who is devoted to a life of action. For that person, what are the do's and don'ts was given now. Now comes to the next. Here, the Lord presents a very clear distinction between an active person and a person who is having the aptitude for knowledge. Aptitude for work, aptitude for knowledge. A person having aptitude for work we discussed till now. Now he is giving a clear categorical differentiation of a person who is having the aptitude for knowledge. Yastvatmaratireva syadatmatrutascha manavah atmanyevacha santushta tasya karyam na vidyate. The person, whereas for the person who is delighted in the self, who is satisfied with the self, contented in the self alone, for that person there is nothing to be done. So if you are devoted to self-knowledge, so this can be taken in two ways. Either you have self-knowledge, or you are devoted to self-knowledge to the exclusion of everything else. In either of this case, that person has nothing else to do. You are not obliged to do anything. Your devotion to the self-knowledge takes care of the rest of the things. There is no do's and don'ts, in the sense obligatory actions are not there, and there is no negative effect incurred by not doing the certain obligatory actions which are obligatory for normal people. That comes next. Naiva tasya kritenartho na kriteneha kaschana na cha asya sarvabhuteshu kaschid arthavyapashrayah. Now, for that person who revels in the self, there is indeed no purpose here in this world for doing or not doing action. Nor does such a person depend on any being for any object whatsoever. This is something to be understood in a proper manner. This verse tells the person who is reveling in the self, that means the person who is conscious of one's own true nature, the person who is aware, who is having the knowledge of the self, for that person, there is no purpose in this world. It means he has nothing to achieve. He has no purushartha. It means he need not pursue any purushartha. Only when you consider yourself as limited, you have a target to achieve. Either you have to achieve dharma, or you have to achieve artha, which is prosperity and security, or you have to achieve pleasures because you consider yourself as an enjoyer. Without the pleasure you feel inadequate. Or you have to achieve moksha because you consider yourself to be bound. If you consider yourself to be bound, you are looking for liberation. Why do you consider yourself to be bound? Because you don't know your true nature as ever free. Because you don't know your true nature, you consider yourself to be limited and bound. That is why you pursue liberation. If you are not pure enough, sensitive enough, you pursue pleasure and security. And if you are a little sensitive enough, but not sensitive enough to understand moksha, but you are a little more sensible person than a normal person, you pursue your security and pleasure according to dharma. And if you are a little more sensitive, you pursue dharma much more than pleasure and security. Even at the cost of my own security, I will promote dharma. So that is a little mature. So such a person can become sensitive to moksha over a period of time. But all these are relevant only for a person who considers oneself as a person. It is not relevant for a person who understands oneself as the supreme being in which this entire universe abides. Okay? This is the teaching. So don't take these rules and regulations, do not take this yardstick of rules, do's and don'ts for the jnani. So when you see a person, a sannyasi, don't go and say this sannyasi, this monk or this person devoted to self-knowledge is accumulating sin by not doing his everyday ritualistic duties. Because in India this is a big thing, There was a person, I heard from my teacher that there was a person who took sannyasa, who became a monk under Swami Dayananda. And the next 2-3 days later, it was New Moon Day. New Moon Day, the person is supposed to give oblations to the ancestors. So he comes from a very strict ritualistic background. And he had a lot of this attitude, Shraddha, to do the Vedic obligatory rituals. So, to do obligatory rituals for one's dead ancestors is very important for a person who is supposed to do that. This person, because it is that new moon day when you are supposed to do, his antenna triggered. He wanted to do. He became very restless. He did not know what to do. Then he went and told his guru, and his guru said, "Are you? You have any common sense? You have become a monk now. You have renounced all the rituals. There are no obligations for it." So the person had to be told again and again with so many logic and scriptures and evidence and so many other things, for the person to be convinced that okay, emotionally he is convinced, I don't need to do anything. So it is very important for the society not to put obligations on a person devoted to self-knowledge, and also when a person chooses self-knowledge, not to carry over the burden of the ritualistic religion after you have received the knowledge. I mean, this applies to the person who has renounced the world for the sake of knowledge. So having renounced the world for the sake of knowledge, don't carry over your ritualistic obligations. May your mind be devoted to knowledge alone. This applies only to a sannyasi. As you see the next verses, we will see to whom it applies. It does not mean, so you may think, okay, I have also listened to Vedanta. So I also don't need to do anything. I know I am Brahman. Does it apply for you also? We will see. For that person who revels in the self, there is indeed no purpose here in this world for doing or not doing action. There is no purpose for doing action because he has nothing to achieve. He already has achieved the purity of the mind required for acquiring knowledge. And he is not keen on getting good karma so that he will enjoy heaven or whatever. So he need not do that. And he is not looking for any security. So he need not do any specific action for security. That person need not do puja for Lakshmi to get more money. And that person need not go and pursue different pleasures because he has renounced all the pleasures. He need not pursue that. And there is no purpose for not doing either. It means, in the sense, by not doing, the person does not incur negative karma of omission. In the sense, when you do what is supposed to be done, you get merit. When you don't do what is supposed to be done, you get demerit. It is like, I told you, Nitya Karma. Nitya Karma means everyday ritualistic obligations, which is there in the, you can take it as your, worship of your deity, your Ishta Devata in the house, maintaining your altar, offering the food, etc., doing your mantra, that can be replaced. You are doing what is called as Smarta Karma, that is Agamic Karma. Suppose if I have given you a mantra and you are supposed to do that, pranayama, this meditation, this yoga and this japa of your mantra, all that, these come under Agamic Karma, based on Smriti. It's not Vedic, but it is based on Smriti. So it's called Smarta Karma. That is the replacing of the Vedic Karma. Those who are not qualified to do Vedic Karma, do Smarta Karma. That is the idea. So that Smarta Karma also, that is what do you do it for purifying the mind. But a person who is already in tune with knowledge, the purity of mind has served its purpose. So why you keep doing all the same ritual? That is the point here. If you do that regularly, you will purify your mind. But if you don't do those obligatory actions regularly, you will incur a certain kind of a negative karma, because there is nothing to neutralize the negative tendencies that are accumulating in the system. Like not brushing my teeth, I accumulate tartar. In the same way, by not doing my everyday practice of yoga, I accumulate chitta shuddhi. I reinforce my tendencies for indulgence. I reinforce my tendencies for laziness. I increase my tamas. I increase my rajas. And I get caught in the pattern of survival. If I do my everyday yoga practice, I am a little bit kept together and I am not lost into that pattern of survival. All these patterns of life, we have been caught into. We are not sucked into that current of life, but it keeps us together. And as we are more sucked into the current of life, we will accumulate more and more of this tendency of slavery to the senses. And then we go far away from our ability to pursue knowledge. So that is what is called as negative karma, accumulating negative karma. These problems don't exist for a knower of the self. That is the point. Nor does such a person depend on any being for any object whatsoever. What does this mean? You may say, that person needs to eat food. Even when I see monks go and beg for food. So that means for food, this monk is dependent on the society. How can you say this fellow is 6 foot tall and he is eating so much food, 2 kilograms of food for 2 days, and he is dependent on the society where the food comes from? How come you say this person does not depend on anybody for their object? No. Some people will translate. No, this means a great master who lives in the cosmic food, who lives by light. He consumes the light through the middle oblongata and through the rays of the sun, and he survives simply by the energy of the Lord alone. Man does not live by bread alone. They will quote. You remember somebody? You receive the cosmic energy through your middle oblongata, and then you spread in your body, and you will live without food. Then you will see some cases in India, here and there. There are people who live without food. The solar yoga is very popular. There are people who do solar yoga, they don't eat food. Does it mean something like this here? Mm-hmm. No.
Not here. It's Jasmine. It's a woman from Australia.
There is one man in India also, one old man is there.
And this woman visits Romania each year, almost.
So, does such a person is independent? No, that person is dependent on Surya Devata. So the person who is living on solar energy is a walking solar cooker. That person is dependent on sun. So here what does it say? Sarva bhuteshu kaschit. Sarva bhuteshu means he is not dependent on any being. Sarva bhuteshu, not sarva manushya. It is not on any other human being, is not talked about here. It is talked about na cha asya sarva bhuteshu kaschit artha vyapashrayah. Artha vyapa ashrayah means he is not depending upon any being whatsoever, physical being or subtle being or divine being whatsoever, for the purpose of security. The translation should be taken as kaschit artha vyapa ashrayah. Artha vyapa ashrayah. Artha is here security. That means he is not clinging, he is not psychologically dependent upon any being. He is not looking for the support of any being for the purpose of feeling secure. That means that person is not having any sense of insecurity. That's what it means. It does not mean a person who lives on solar light. Even if a person is living on solar energy, that person is dependent on sun. Sun is a being, Surya Devata is a being. So, sun may look like a ball of gas, but the became the ball of gas is a certain Devata. Savita Devata is there. So the person is dependent on sun. So if you put that solar yoga person in a Finland winter, the person is finished. So what the person will eat? She will live on tube light? No, it will not work. UV lamp, simply the UV lamp and no. So even then you are dependent on UV lamp and electricity. You have to pay electric bill. So here it means not functional independence, it means psychological independence. He is not psychologically dependent on any being. And then tasmad asaktah satatam karyam karma samachara. Asakto hyacharan karma paramapnoti purushaha. Param apnoti purushaha. Therefore, always perform well the action that is to be done without attachment, because by performing action without attachment, a person attains the highest. So what is this? Just now you said, you see the sequence. That is why Bhagavad Gita requires a commentary. The sequence, he says, a person who is delighted in the self has nothing to do. Then the person who is delighted in the self is not dependent on anybody or anything. He has no purpose in this world for doing or not doing. Therefore, do the action that is to be done. What is this? That means what? Therefore, since you are not like that, Mr. Arjuna, since you are a person driven by likes and dislikes, since you are hanging on for your dear life for so many with so many variables. Since you are a person who is having preferences, they are mine and I am theirs. And since you are a person who is looking for name and fame, and since you are a person who is fundamentally emotionally biased, who is thinking that you are a doer and the knower, since you are a very active person, that sannyasa dharma is not for you. See, you are not independent of everything. You are not completely secure in yourself. You are not free from, you are not unaffected by non-doing or by doing. Because you said you got depressed by the thought of having to go for the war. And you are very attached not to do the war but to go and become a mendicant because it's very comfortable. You don't need to kill all those near and dear people who are standing on the opposite side. That means you are not a person whom I am talking about. This sannyasi is a person who has no purpose here in this world for doing or not doing. If something has to be done, he has no problem doing it. If something need not be done, he does not miss anything. And at the same time, by not doing what is obligatory, he has no sense of omission or commission. No, he does not regret not doing certain things. Because the person understands, I am not the doer, I am not the enjoyer, I am not this individual. The person understands the true nature of the self. That is another category. You are not that category. So, perform well the action that is to be done without attachment. So, what you can do, you have to do action. Because you are belonging to the active temperament. But what you can do the action, but don't be attached to the result. Do the action with detachment. Like that, if you do, a person can attain the highest also. Through Atma Shuddhi Dvarena, in the commentary Shankaracharia says, through the process of self-purification, you will attain the highest. That means by doing action without attachment, you will purify your mind, and in due course you will attain the highest, which is self-knowledge. Then the next is Karmanyevahi samsiddhim asthita janakadayaha lokasangrahameva api sampashyan kartumarhasi. Here he is giving some motivation. You had a great statement about these monks and these people who are established in self-knowledge, like Sunaka, Sukha, Sananda, Sanadana, these great sages. Like that, he told about this enlightened person. Then he says, so you do action. By action without attachment, you will also attain the highest. Then Arjuna began like this. Then he said, don't worry. And he gave some motivation. You need some inspiration. The inspiration is here. Indeed, by action alone, Janaka and others gained liberation. Also, by merely seeing the desirability of protecting the people from falling into unbecoming ways, you ought to perform action. First he said, see, there are others, exemplary personalities in history who have lived an active life and also had been the greatest of Brahmanishtas, the greatest of enlightened people. Like Janaka, for example. This Janaka was a character who comes in Ramayana. So this Janaka was a father of goddess Sita, the foster father of goddess Sita, Rama's father-in-law, King Janaka. So this King Janaka was known to be completely detached and unaffected by anything because of his self-knowledge. He was known like, even great sages used to come to his court to debate and discuss with him to clarify their doubts. So if somebody has a question, there was a character, Upanishadic character, who had a question about this self-knowledge, and his teacher said, go and learn from King Janaka. So this person was a very austere person, he was he was wearing only a loincloth, tapasvi, yogi, complete detachment. He was a monk, full austerity. He was an exemplary person for austerity. And he was a bit attached to austerity, and he was thinking that he can get everything by austerity. So his teacher said, okay, this person needs to have a lesson. What do? You go and ask for self-knowledge from King Janaka. He goes to King Janaka. He is there sitting on a velvet couch. 3 girls massaging his right hand, 3 girls massaging his left hand, 2 girls massaging his feet. One person is waving the fan, and then he's smoking that hookah, and then and enjoying and listening to nice music. King is supposed to be like a king, so he was like a king. So this sage goes there with a loincloth, Brahmana, with all his austerity and deer skin and everything. He goes there, and he says, I think my guru made a mistake. He sent me to the wrong person. Are you Janaka? I said, yes, I am Janaka. I am the king Janaka. Oh, then he got completely annoyed, and then he ran back to his guru. What nonsense! He wants me to learn self-knowledge from this glutton, and then he went back. And then he went back to his teacher and said, no, that Janaka only, go and learn from him. He is a great jnani. When Guru says second time, so his Shraddha kicked in. Guru said second time, that means there must be something in there. Otherwise my teacher will not say. So he goes there and then waits on Janaka. And then he makes him wait for some time, tests his patience. And then there are some discussions, some incidents where and then he observes him for some time. Then somebody runs and says, "Oh king, the palace is in fire. All your your relatives and your wealth and everything was burnt. It seems I got the news that your palace is in fire. That such and such palace in that kingdom is in fire. Everything is gone. Everything is into ashes." He was smoking the hookah. Oh, he continued to smoke the hookah. He was watching that. And after that, another guy ran and came. Sorry, it was the wrong information. Not that your palace is safe. It is about some other kingdom. Everything is safe in your palace. Oh, and then he continued to smoke the hookah. Then he understood he is not affected by the role of the king. And then another situation where his guru Vasishtha comes and asks him to ponder over a question. In the middle of the marketplace, he sits. He is known for this. He wants to understand the reason. So it seems he was in like the Zen story, the Zen master, it seems he dreamed of a butterfly, and he woke up and then started crying. He said, "What is the problem?" He said, "I don't know if it is I dreamt of the butterfly or I am the butterfly who is dreaming that it is me. So I don't know which one is true." So like that, this person also had a dream where he was lost in a forest and he was hungry and he was about to be eaten by a tiger, and then he woke up. Then he finds himself in the middle of the luxury of the king. Then he went into contemplation. That is true or this is true? He was in the middle of the marketplace, he sat. That is true or this is true? That is true or this is true? Only this. Nobody could talk. Whatever people talked to him, there was no reply, nothing. He was only saying, that is true or this is true? Then he did not know what to do. Then they called his Ashtavakra, who was his guru. And Ashtavakra came, and then Sage Ashtavakra saw him. He said, that is true or this is true? And Ashtavakra said, neither that is true nor this is true. You are the truth. Then he understood. And then he went. This is one instance from his life. When he goes in, it seems when he goes into contemplation, he will not know what is happening to the body. When he goes into contemplation, he will not know what is happening to the body. He is supposed to be in samadhi all the time. But in the middle, apparently when you look, his body is in the middle of all the luxuries and doing the job of a king. And if you have to punish somebody, you have to punish that person. You have to think diplomatically with all the complications that belong to a king's life, completely untouched. Then somebody asked him, it seems, how do you maintain this? And he says, if I lose sight of the true nature of myself for 1 second, it is like death for me. So because of that, nothing affects. Because of that, the mind is established in knowledge. It is not that he was only doing this. No, in the middle of all his duties, he got enlightenment. No, he had also devoted himself for tapasya. So tapasya, practice of yoga and everything is part of the life. So what is to be understood here is retreats, yoga, yogic practice, meditation and austerities are only one part of the life from which you carry over an attitude with which you live your life. So in different kinds of situations, you are not bothered about the situations and what you do for what you do, but you are always busy looking at your motive in the action, and you are always examining yourself while you are busy in action. So in that process, what happens? Your buddhi becomes highly purified and it is not distracted by what is to be acquired and what is to be preserved and what is lost. What is lost does not make you lose your balance. What comes new does not make you jump. What is to be preserved does not create anxiety. So this kind of stability is achieved living a life of Karma Yoga. And don't worry, Arjuna, there were great people who achieved the highest perfection in knowledge like Janaka who followed this method. So you will also achieve that, don't worry, you don't need to become a monk to achieve that. That's what he is telling. Whatsoever an important person, and then he gives another motivation to perform action in a detached spirit. So he is giving a selfless motivation. See, you have to do action for the purpose of purification. Don't worry, you will attain the highest by doing selfless, by doing action with detachment. Also, he has this Kshatriya spirit, this Kshatriya ego. So he is picking on that. He says, by merely seeing the desirability of protecting the people from falling into adharma, you ought to perform action. Just to prevent people from getting distracted into wrong way of life, for protecting the people and helping the people to maintain the right track, you have to perform action. Why? Arjuna is a king. He is a hero. He is a living legend. He is an archery legend. He is a womanizer legend. He is a valor, courageous legend for courage. He is a legend for learnedness, for scholarship. For so many things, Arjuna is a legend, living legend. He is like a top quality person. So people look up to Arjuna. Oh, Arjuna himself dropped everything and went in the middle of the war. So why should we do our duty? We will also give up. When Arjuna himself can do, why not us? So when an exemplary person, a person who is in a position, in a privileged position, when that person conducts himself or herself in an appropriate manner, that becomes a motivation for the rest of the people to follow. In India, we have one movie hero called Rajinikanth. So whatever Rajinikanth does, thousands of people will follow. Like say in the America, in my generation, Michael Jackson, right? So when Michael Jackson, whatever Michael Jackson does, all his fans will follow. So the one day like this Rajinikanth said, the secret of my success and my peace of mind and happiness is meditation. Every day I do 1 hour meditation. So all of you should do meditation for at least 5 minutes. That's all. All Rajinikanth fans, millions and millions of people started meditating from the next hour. Rajinikanth is meditating, I am meditating. So a person who is in an influential position has a social responsibility. So Arjuna, you may not have, if you are not a mature person, do action in a spirit of detachment so that you will get the inner purity and maturity. Suppose if you say you are already enlightened because you have heard me talking about your true self in the 2nd chapter, Sankhya Yoga and all that. Suppose if you say that you are enlightened, do action for the sake of the welfare of the people. Because you are in an influential position, you are supposed to do the right action in order to inspire people to follow Dharma. So that he is invoking the Kshatriya spirit. Since you have a role to play, if you play your role properly, people will be inspired to follow the right way of life. Otherwise, they may go in the wrong track. To prevent people from going in the wrong track, may you perform the obligatory action. Then the next is, he is giving the logic why. Yad yad acharati sreshtas satya deve taro janaha sa yad pramanam kurute lokasthat anuvartate. Whatsoever an important person does, that alone the other people do. Whatever that person sets as proper, the world of the people follows that as a benchmark for conduct. Okay. So this is the logic. So when an important person like Arjuna or Krishna does. So who is the most important person? Who is the highest person? The Purushottama, the highest of all persons is Ishvara. So here comes the next logic. Partha, Arjuna. So he is saying, this is called Pratama Malla Nyaya, the logic of the greatest wrestler. So if you are to get the certificate of being the greatest wrestler in a kingdom, you don't have to go and wrestle everybody in the kingdom. You have to find who is the greatest wrestler right now. So you go and beat him in wrestling, you become the top wrestler. So that is the logic. It's called the greatest wrestler logic. So what he says now, whatever an important person does, the common people follow suit. Now, who is the greatest, the most important, highest person, Purushottama? The Lord, Ishvara. So he says, Partha, Arjuna, for me there is nothing to be done. Name Parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam varta evacha karmani. For me there is nothing to be done in these three worlds. There is nothing to be gained by me which is not yet gained. Yet I remain engaged in action. Here Bhagavan Vacha, Bhagavan means here Ishvara. You cannot say just Mr. Krishna. You have to say Krishna taking the standpoint of God. So when Krishna takes the standpoint of God, he says, see, Ishvara himself is doing a lot of action. Ishvara is completeness. Ishvara is fullness. He has nothing to achieve in the three worlds, in the three periods of time. Nor is he going to lose something by not doing something. Nor is he going to gain something by doing something. Still, Ishvara is very busy sustaining this world. Because the Shruti says, Ishvara does tapasya and creates this world. And Ishvara does tapasya to sustain this world. So this universal laws of physics that keeps this universe together is kept together by the thought power of Ishvara. It is Ishvara's thought that keeps all this together. That is why an order can be sustained in the middle of the chaos, means there is a conscious principle that is involved that is keeping the order together. Once the conscious force is withdrawn, the order cannot be maintained. The order will dissipate. So when we all do yajna, we are all participating in the Lord's work to sustain the cosmic equilibrium. So the equilibrium of the universe is created, sustained and maintained. Ishvara does 5 kinds of jobs. Srishti, creation. Sthiti, maintenance. Samharam, dissolution. Tirodhanam, covering up the reality by putting a veil on the reality. Otherwise, if the veil on the reality is not there, you may be seeing only like in the Matrix movie, that Neo will see only numbers flowing. Everybody will see a lot of things, but this fellow will see only numbers. So he can manipulate. So what will happen? You will see only quarks and electrons and protons buzzing around probably. That is why the reality is veiled, and so that a certain transactional reality is possible. When you veil the absolute reality, a transactional reality becomes possible. Only when a person covers their original form with the appropriate makeup, that person can play the role in a drama. If I don't wear the makeup of a king, I cannot act like a king. In my normal look, I don't look like a king. So I have to put all this throne and everything, then I go to the drama. So I hide my reality and I project a transactional reality which is valid for a given context. In the same way, so that people can pursue karma and the jiva can evolve, the absolute reality is veiled by the Lord, so that we can live our life and grow in merit and achieve the ultimate vision of the self as the absolute reality. A dream is created, the drunken man is taken for a ride. You remember that example? You will can put it in place. So till the reality has to be veiled to play a game. And that game is required to solve a problem which is ajnana, ignorance. So the Lord covers the reality. Tirodhanam it is called. And then anugraham. Anugraham is grace. Any teaching that is given to reveal the reality, or any teaching that is given to give you knowledge and guidance so that you can take care of yourselves through yajna, etc., is called the act of grace. The act of grace liberates. So Lord performing the act of liberating the people from samsara is doing the act of grace as anugraham. So these 5 kinds of jobs the Lord does. Creation, sustenance, dissolution, veiling the reality and liberating the individual from samsara. These 5 actions. Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Shiva, Sadashiva. In Shaiva Siddhanta discusses this Panchakrityam, the 5 kinds of work of a Lord. Shaiva Siddhanta discusses Shaivism, Kashmir Shaivism. They discuss this in a very great detail. So we don't go into too much detail in that. We just say Shishti Sthiti Samhara. The rest is understood. Creation, sustenance and dissolution. The rest is understood in that. But these 2 can be included. Called Panchakrityam. The Lord does all his jobs, applying his mind, without the sense of doership for the welfare of the being. So he says, take Ishvara as an example. Ishvara himself, needing nothing, still keeps himself busy. Every time the Dharma comes down, he has to incarnate and save the Dharma and put things back into order and go back. Why does he do that? He does it for the welfare of all the beings. In the same manner, should I not ever engage, if the Lord does not do this action, what happens? For should I not ever engage myself in action without being lazy, Arjuna, people would follow my example in every way. If people will follow this example of inaction everywhere, what will happen? These people would perish. I would be the author of confusion in the society and I would destroy this being, and it would not be up to the mark of me playing the role of a god. So when I am playing God, I have to play properly. So I have to set an example for not only that, I have to sustain these worlds in order to sustain the people, but I have to set an example so that the people can follow that example and grow. That is why Lord Krishna, even though being an avatar, he goes and takes initiation from a teacher. When he goes to a school called Sandipani, there was a rishi called Sandipani. The Swami Chinmayananda's Center for Vedanta Learning in Mumbai, it's called Sandipani. Sandipani is the person who taught Lord Krishna himself. So Lord Krishna goes to him and asks him to accept himself as disciple. And he says, even though you are Lord, what I will teach you? He said, even though I may be Lord or whatever, I cannot learn the Vidya unless I have a Guru, because I have a job to set an example to people. So I have to set an example. So the Lord, when he incarnates, goes to a Guru. You have a certain example here in the Christian tradition. I don't know whether it is discussed elaborately, but I can use that example to illustrate this. Jesus gets baptized by John. Why? He is the Son of God, whatever. He need not baptize, but still John the Baptist baptizes Jesus. And then Jesus starts baptizing others, something like this. No? So why he has to be baptized by somebody? So the Dvija, being born again, has to be done through an Acharya, through a Guru. That is the point. So that tradition has to be respected. Even though if you are Lord Krishna, you have to follow, you have to do something properly to set an example. So if the Lord himself does not set an example, what will happen? People will say, if the Lord himself does that, why can't I do? Ramana Maharshi, when he eats upma with onion, everybody eats upma with onion. Ramana Maharshi can go into Samadhi and not come back for 10 days. So he can eat with onion. But if Ramana Maharshi takes care not to eat onion, everybody will also take care not to eat onion. So one example of Acharya living in a proper manner, in spite of being enlightened, in spite of having the 8 great powers, where he could appear in 2 places in the same time. The lamp is on. If he has to appear in 2 places, he can appear in 2 places in the same time. The moment you come, he will know all that you are thinking, your past, present, future, everything. In spite of all those great powers, that person followed every little ridiculous ritualistic rule in order to set an example. See Shankaracharia of Kanchipuram, he was there. His picture is there in the wall, that black and white picture, that is him. So he was a person, in spite of having all the powers and being considered as an enlightened person by every saint in the country, he followed every little ritualistic rule. And if somebody does mistake, he will punish himself by not eating. No, this example, he said exemplary personality. It's very important. So when these people don't set an example, what will happen? People will follow the wrong example and the confusion will start setting in. That is the explanation given here. Bharata, just as the unwise who are attached to the results perform action, so too would the wise perform action without attachment, desirous of doing that which is for the protection of the people. Sattaha karman yavidvamso yatha kurvanti bharata. Those people who are attached, who are ignorant, they do action with attachment for the sake of results. Okay? They do action for the sake of performing results. in the same manner, with the same passion, the wise people also do action, but without attachment, for the purpose of the welfare of the world. Loka Sangraham means for the sake of preserving the integrity of the society, these wise people also perform action in a selfless spirit, even though they don't need to do action for their own sake. Now, how do you protect the people? One, by the prayers and the rituals, people are protected. Also, by setting an example, by following, people will follow Dharma. When you set an example, people follow the example and follow Dharma, and that Dharma protects them. So, directly and indirectly, the people are protected. Then the next one. Na buddhi bhedam janayed ajnanam karma sanghina joshayet sarva karmani vidvan yuktah samachanam. The one who knows the self should not create, we will stop with this today. The one who knows the self should not create any disturbance in the understanding of the ignorant who are attached to the results of action. The wise person, steadfast in the knowledge, being established in the knowledge himself or herself, performing all the actions well, should encourage the ignorant people to performing all the actions properly. It's a very, very important words in the Bhagavad Gita, which is quoted in the in our tradition as a guideline for people who are taking to full-time spiritual life. Even those who this is one of the verses that is very important, that puts the traditional teaching in perspective and differentiates the traditional methodology when compared to the non-traditional guru-centered methodology. So there are two approaches: tradition-centered teaching and guru-centered teaching. When the guru becomes more important than the tradition, and when the guru is overwhelmed by his own enlightenment, he goes around enlightening the world. You call all the ignorant people out there and then say, what are you doing? This is all ignorance. You are not the doer. You are not the enjoyer. All this is going to bind you and put you in this. All this world is nothing but a dream. Why you have to do all these things? Don't do anything. Leave everything and wear one orange dress and take a begging bowl and go and everybody take a begging bowl and start meditating. This is called spreading enlightenment everywhere. So there are people who do that. So if not begging bowl, they will do whatever they are doing. They will stop doing that, and then they will take to an unsustainable way of life in the name of getting spiritual enlightenment, and then they will end up frustrated and confused, and they will neither have worldly success nor have spiritual success. This sounds very familiar to us. So wherever you go to any ashram in India, this is the category that you will see. All these backpackers who come from Europe, 99% of them belong to this category, who are trying to use spirituality as an escapism. So an enlightened person should not disturb the faith of the unenlightened, those who don't have the understanding, those who are ignorant. By setting himself as an example, the person, that means what? The wise person should inspire the masses for following Dharma. Dharma and karma are same way. Karma according to Dharma. So the wise person must inspire the common man to follow Dharma. Should not disturb the order of the society by marketing enlightenment. I open the doors of enlightenment to all. Everybody can get enlightened now. That kind of nonsense the person should not do. If that person does, he is otherwise, at least with respect to this. It is very important. That is why a wise person can also become a trouble for the society if the person is if the person's wisdom becomes too much. That's why he said the wise person, steadfast in knowledge, himself performing all the actions well, should encourage the ignorant to performing action. That means promote Dharma, don't promote enlightenment. Unless you are asked the question for teaching, don't market enlightenment. That's what it means. Unless a person is ready, you should not impose enlightenment. You can impose Dharma, but you cannot impose enlightenment. Even Dharma cannot be imposed. By performing Dharma yourself, you inspire people to perform Dharma. You cannot impose. Certain things cannot be imposed. Dharma, that is why they ask, at what age can we These Indian parents are very ambitious. There are some ambitious parents. At what age can I bring my kid for yoga? He's 4 years old. I think he's planning to start yoga. If you bring him to start yoga class. The kid wants to play. And you bring him to a yoga class, the kid will be running all around the place. It will be very difficult. But what they can do, you cannot make the kids practice yoga. The mother or father can do yoga in the house. No matter what the kid shouts and calls for attention, you keep doing your practice. The kid will come, look like this, and then it will go around you and all that. After some time, it will also start. If you see the kid alone, leave the kid alone. After some time, you will see the kid trying to put lotus pose or trying to do some technique, forward bend. He will lift the leg and stay for some time. Something he will be trying. So that inspiration. When the kid is inspired, then you can teach what is to be done. Now, if in India, it's very common to see when the father is doing Sandhyavanam, these rituals and all that. You will see the kid also, he will bring one plate and he will bring one tumbler and he will start pouring water, doing something. It's inspired to do the ritual. And then after some time, it will be playing with that. So they will say what is called as duplicate Yajnopavita. So we have this thread, the Brahmins wear the thread. They will give duplicate thread, that is without the mantra and something, for the kid to play. So when everybody is changing the thread, the kid is also curious, they will give one thread. So the kid will wear this thread. He will be very proud that I am also doing that. That inspiration. When you inspire for some time, later when the time is right, that kid can be taught. In the same way, grown-up people are also like kids. When it comes to telling do this and do that, it will not work. But if you follow the rules properly, they will, what are you doing? What are you doing? What is this? When the curiosity is there, then you can teach and then they will start doing. So the wise person is supposed to inspire the masses for performing dharma. Actions are performed in various ways, impelled by the gunas of Prakriti. The body, mind and the senses, deluded by the I notion, one thinks I am the doer. This is the next topic. We will continue in the next class. So we will finish with this note. Na buddhi bedam janayet ajnanam karma sanghinam joshayet sarva karmani vidvan yuktaha samacharan. Vidvan yuktaha means the one who has understood the truth about oneself and the one who also understands the proper methodology and the one who is well learned in the Shastras will set an example for the others to follow Dharma. Should not, buddhi bhedam, here, buddhi bhedam janayed ajnanam karma sanghina. Those ignorant people who are attached to the sense of doership and who are attached to different actions for the purpose of pursuing different results, those people should not get buddhi bheda, means should not have a conflict in their mind. A wise person, when he markets enlightenment to the unqualified person, it will generate conflict. It will make the person have a yo-yo. Should I pursue worldly life or should I pursue spiritual life? When he is sitting for meditation, he will be sitting about getting a girlfriend. When he is with a girlfriend, he will be sitting, oh, this is all Maya, I should go and meditate. So this yo-yo we see in most of the youngsters who are in the spirituality. But if you dig back into it, you will see that why do you want enlightenment? Because I read in such and such a book that the purpose of life is enlightenment. Because purpose of life is enlightenment, I want enlightenment. But are you interested in enlightenment? What are you interested in? I am interested in, then slowly you dig up a little bit, the person is interested in so many things. Poor guy, why to push him for enlightenment? Let him enjoy all that and let him achieve all that according to Dharma. Over a period of time, that person, busy achieving a lot of things in life, will recognize the limitations in all these achievements. After you recognize the limitations, you will have the inquiring mind. When you have the inquiring mind, then you can talk about enlightenment. So till that time, we should talk only about Dharma to that person, the right way of living and a sustainable way of living that not only helps you to achieve your goals, but that also helps you to achieve the goals without paying a huge price. Achieve your goals by also purifying yourself. Achieve your goals without incurring negative karma. Achieve your goals in a spiritually sustainable manner. For that, the wise person should set an example. So with this, we will finish today. Any questions is there, you can ask for another 10 minutes and then we can. Is it too fast or I slowed down once in a while? I was conscious and I slowed down. It's not, I hope it's not too. You can stop the recording, no? Yes.
You said that